All right. Well, we're back with another week. It's been just marginally less insane than last week was compared to the week before. So, well, you can't really say it's better. You can only say that it's slightly less worse than it was the last time I said it was worse.
I don't know. I think it can be construed as better.
I think so, too.
The reason why I say that, of course, is you can find us on yet another service.
No, fair enough. Yeah, I have started putting up the back episodes on BitChute, so check those out there. They'll be going up on Odyssey soon.
I heard Odyssey pays you well.
They pay you. I don't know how well they pay you, but I will keep you informed. Speaking of pay, we're getting really close to that $4 mark. Big dollars, big money. Cash money superstars.
God, you just reminded me of Smash TV. Big money, big prizes. I love it.
Well,
now that
we're
deserves an
be able to turn
HD
around
remake.
at the cool parties and be like, hey, I'm really big in the edgelord community. We've got all 20 subscribers.
Listen, all the shit posters know where to go for their scientific knowledge.
That's exactly right. Oh, speaking of which, while we do this, just don't mind me if I drop out for a moment. I need to get a book, specifically a textbook. It has information pertinent to what we're talking about tonight.
Oh, boy.
All right. Well, that said, we'll just kind of start where we start. There's a lot to go over, but the most pressing issue, and the one that's literally right now, kind of came out today. Luckily, we could actually miss the normal air date and get a good chance to cover this as it's fresh, is the Vax Pass. So make sure and hold out your right hand, or if you prefer, they could maybe imprint it on your forehead, whichever you like.
Yeah,
you can go ahead and get your mark.
That roller, it's the moron roller. You put some moron on.
So you go and get your mark so that you can do your business and all the kingdoms of man and what have you.
I just don't understand how they're planning on doing that. I really don't. That's like super illegal.
Oh yeah,
like
completely.
you have the right to freedom of assembly, you have the right to travel, you have the right to be,
well, your
secure
medical
in your person
records
and
are
things.
private.
Literally nobody can turn around and verify whether, you can't walk up and ask people these kinds of things. I don't know how they're going to pull it off.
Now, there's certain things that are already there that have always been that way, like getting vaccinated before you go to school. That's something that's just a thing that we as a society accept, and that's probably not going to change, and that's fine. And the most important part of that is that the medical exceptions are allowed. The whole entire purpose of the vaccine, as far as herd immunity, is to keep them safe. Fine. It's all very straightforward and simple. We're not even going to go into the vagaries of how that is done dynamically. The most important point is that it's done. The most important point is that it is a constrained small part of society. It is not the general public interactions. Where I have an issue is where they've blown up that paradigm to somehow cover fucking everything.
Well, but hold on, too, right? There's a fundamental difference. When you start talking about things like where we put in requirements for vaccines,
right.
That is not because we want to require people to take the vaccines. That's specifically because there are certain people, and there's a higher risk likelihood of exposing people who are literally unable to take vaccines. So when we start talking about hospitals and we start talking about these very young age school kids, if your unvaccinated child shows up, yes and no, right? Like I get that portion, but
it's more important to protect the people who are vulnerable, but both objectives are kind of intrinsically tied together.
I mean, first off, the school doesn't really have a vested interest in whether or not your child gets sick. Only you do. So really, the only argument that you can make.
Let's be careful about that one. Public schools don't give a shit because public schools get paid either way.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, their teachers, as a matter of fact, get paid for not going, and they're raising a real stink about it in some states to keep on.
Fair enough. But the predominant argument, the legitimate argument for forcing vaccines in places like hospitals and supermarkets and all the other stuff is because you would be exposing people who literally can't get the vaccine. In this case, for the COVID vaccine, this is a completely different scenario where we're essentially saying that you can't take it not because you're exposing people who can't get it. We're saying that anybody who wants it can get it, and then all of a sudden we're going to restrict those who choose not to get it, right? And again, we're talking about implementing this thing on something that hasn't been FDA approved yet.
And we should also make an important point here. Well, it has been approved through EUA.
Emergency use only, but that's a very different data set.
Just a
traditional
minor detail of that is it has been approved through EUA, which is not the same as a general approval.
It's not the same. It's not the same.
Specifically meant for emergency authorizations only.
And there are different requirements that come in. Particularly, they have longer duration studies, which are looking for the weird minor defects that can come about as a result of the vaccine. And again,
the major difference here is that with a public institution like a school, for general vaccines, like all your childhood vaccines you get to make sure, they ask you about on your forms, all the way up through undergrad and grad school, by the way. So any public university and most private universities are going to be asking you about your vaccinations too. But you probably are going to have all that stuff sorted out anyway. So the thing that they also allow is basically your general religious exceptions as well as your physical needs exceptions. So it's not just your health that's at play there, but if you have a religious exemption because it's say what is it, Jehovah's Witnesses or no, they're the ones who don't like transfusions. I can't remember which ones don't like vaccines.
There's the Christian Scientists. I think Seventh-day Adventists are in the same group.
Okay, Seventh-day.
There's actually a bunch of different subsects that don't support drugs and internally administered.
And anyway, point being that there's a religious exemption from it that is just de facto accepted as a thing because that was already squared away before. That's probably going to be something that is going to be attempted to be crushed with this. Is another issue I have with it. And it comes right back to that First Amendment issue you cited.
It's the First Amendment, it's the Fourth Amendment.
Let alone,
Yeah, I mean, you look at just some of the shit that Cuomo pulled. This very same kind of dramatic overreach that had to be reined in by the Supreme Court. I mean, it's utterly ridiculous.
You legitimately cannot start turning around and pulling people's medical record for anything at any time for any reason. That's literally something that you can't do. And we're talking about, maybe there are certain special use exemptions where you can present it for you as an individual voluntarily presenting it for whatever reasons that you need, but that's part of HIPAA. Right? Like there are so many. They're arguing, well, hey, it's on the blockchain, and all you get to see is a QR code, but that is telling you part of your medical history, regardless of what happens. And again, one of the actually, I'm not going to say again because we haven't done it again. Anything that we do sets a precedent. And when we start talking about COVID, as much as Craig and I may argue over slight details on this thing, we can both agree that this has been a travesty of information, a travesty of implementation. There has been no cost-benefit analysis offered. It has been an authoritarian nightmare, especially in states like mine in New York. We have lost businesses, people have lost jobs, and you have an entire subsect of the political community that literally believes that the other side is evil and should be purged. And if you're going to sit there and tell me that this is going to be stopped just at this is only going to be implemented for this vaccine, I'm going to tell you bullshit and just wait until they come up with the next crisis where they need an app like this.
Here's the other side of it, is it's been so politicized that right now, and it's stupid because you're going to find people on any part of the political spectrum that are going to not want to take the vaccine or are a heavy proponent for it, etc. Right now, the predominant zeitgeist is that if you don't want to take the vaccine, you're some kind of Trumper. What the fuck does that mean?
Yeah, why would people not want to go out and take advantage of the Trump vaccines that Donald Trump works so hard to make available for us?
Kind of the funniest thing I've ever seen, but it's all Biden's glorious responsibility. So I guess that's where it comes in.
And again, right? I've sat here before and I've defended my, I don't want to take the vaccine. I think that the technology is amazing, and I don't think at any point I have sat there and said anything differently. My issue is safety concerns because we have 20+ years, we have decades of research before we start.
I shut you down on this one before too. AstraZeneca.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You did not turn around and deal with. You didn't though, right? You didn't
I pointed out that there are traditional options that are available
but those still haven't passed the standard safety protocols that we put in play specifically
just pointing
because...
this out, that your major hang-up about the technology is kind of moot when the technology you're more comfortable with exists.
Hold on. My major hang-up is not the technology. I have said, and I will reiterate, I just said it literally moments ago, that the technology is amazing. All of that stuff is really cool. Fantastic. I am not going to take a fucking drug that has not gone through the standard safety protocols that we have established for pharmaceutical companies because they fudge their fucking numbers all the time. They are ground zero. They are the worst case scenario for replication crisis studies. They literally pump shit out. They end up having to retract it, and we do longitudinal studies specifically to prevent them from entering all kinds of unseen medical effects. It's not intentional. They just have a huge profit incentive to push a drug out as fast as possible.
Sure.
And we want to really make sure that it's safe to take.
I would point out here that there's a bit of a frequency bias at play. They have a lot of these positive outcomes for your drug trials and drugs that hit the market, etc., that are basically just flown under the radar. Every time there's a fuck-up, because it is pharmaceuticals and because people's lives are on the line here, it is a major fuck-up.
Well,
Vioxx is a perfect case study in how to fuck things up, let alone OxyContin and the Purdue company.
Well, yeah, we can kind of lay oxys on the feet of the Sacklers a little bit more than we can Vioxx. Vioxx is a legitimate, like, old-school fuck-up corporate style.
Major fuck-up.
Again, the issue isn't necessarily that people are trying to screw things up. And yes, there might be some bias in that, but we have learned time and time again that short-duration studies do not supplement long-term data on the safety and health effects of these drugs. I don't give a shit.
Get the word right.
Oh, go suck a dick.
Present one, bitch.
I'll come down to Florida. I'm sure my wife won't mind.
Yeah, after Cuomo lets you out.
Yeah.
No, he'll be able to get out. He just won't be able to get back in.
Yeah, that's you know what? That's okay. I'll do secret raids transporting senior citizens to go see their grandkids for money.
Oh my God.
But
he's up there. He's just like, I'm gonna be Schindler, all right.
That's exactly right. For money.
List.
I'm gonna be Schindler, but profitable.
That's right. It's gotta watch my margins. The bottom line is that we do these long-term studies, and we have these requirements for safety testing specifically because there are problems that show up in long-term data that isn't present in short-term data. Yeah. And again, I can tell you for an absolute fact that if I have a kid, that sucker is getting vaccinated with all of your standard childhood vaccination. I am not anti-vax. I am not opposed to the technology. I am not going to take something that was pushed out the door in 6 months amidst a whole host of political fanfare and is being backed and pushed by the same people who 6 months ago were sitting there and saying, well, the world's overpopulated and we should do something about that.
Well, not
all
to mention that the Trump vaccine,
that I have.
Well, Kamala herself was saying, no, I'm not going to take a vaccine made by Donald Trump.
Was the funniest fucking thing. That person is about as genuine as a $3 bill.
I am absolutely impressed with what Trump got done.
And worth 1/3 the cost, yes.
Yes. Okay. So all of that is very impressive, and this might be a roadmap for the future. But I want to see the long-term safety data, and I don't want to see something that's coming out after 2 months of data and 2 months of studies. I want to see it in a large population, and frankly, the risk that I see from COVID is not particularly high.
You're basically asking to see the post-pandemic data.
Essentially, yeah.
Okay.
And
you're aware, and this is not for me to be a jerk to you, but just to make sure it's clear to everyone else, you're aware that that's a physical impossibility to get the post-pandemic data post-pandemic.
Well, not necessarily, McFly. He could go hop in the DeLorean.
I don't care.
Your criteria for success here requires a time machine.
Yeah, it's a little stringent.
I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm just saying that you have to be honest.
Not at all.
If you want a longitudinal study before the end of a transient crisis,
hold on.
Presumably,
I do not consider it a crisis. I do not consider it a crisis. I do not have an issue with taking the risk associated with COVID. And after after COVID is done, after we are out of the pandemic, COVID is still going to be kicking around. That is going to happen. And so if we get to a year or 2 year out and we've got solid data on this thing, and I haven't had COVID yet, then I'll take the vaccine. If I get COVID, I'm not really so worried about it. Like, the vaccine's predominant effect is not having a particularly severe reaction. I'm not immunocompromised. I don't have a very high risk associated with it. Taking the vaccine doesn't change your ability to spread it or anything else. It literally is just a risk to yourself, and I'm willing to accept that risk to myself in order to sit there and see the safety data.
It does limit your ability to spread it. You can still spread it to some extent if you get vaccinated, but it does significantly limit your ability to spread it.
If nothing else, then through purely mechanical.
It decreases viral loads substantially to the point where you're no longer symptomatic in the vast majority of cases.
Or even looking at some of the other vaccines, your AstraZeneca, your Johnson & Janssen vac.
Now, AstraZeneca, while maybe less effective at this, does roughly the same. It's the same exact numbers.
I would personally, if you were to ask me where I'm going to put my money after I see the data, it would be on probably Pfizer or Moderna's. I would much rather take the mRNA vaccine than the traditional vaccine after I have the data.
Right. No, I understand.
I haven't seen the data.
I understand what you're saying.
And if that means that I'm taking a vaccine after the pandemic, that's okay. Because I don't consider what we're currently facing to be a real global health crisis. Mm-hmm. I think that it's overblown. The death rate is extremely low, and it's only amongst people who are immunocompromised. If I was immunocompromised or crazy old,
not
that
entirely,
would be different calculus.
That is a valid point. The vast majority, I think it's like 78%. If we're being honest.
I think it's higher than that. Last I checked, it was in the 90s for, you have to have a serious comorbidity associated with it for death.
Well, you see, a serious comorbidity in the United States is obesity.
Yeah, that is to say a serious comorbidity in the United States is being American.
Yeah, seriously, that's not a legitimate thing. They toss obesity on a lot of stuff that it's probably not related
to. Yeah,
now,
but
granted,
this one really
you are going to have those people who are 600 pounds and they're going to be basically crushing their lungs anyways, and all you're going to be doing is creating a problem for someone who probably, is struggling to be alive on their sole amount of lard that they eat every day. But again.
Now, I can actually back that up with some anecdotal evidence. We've got some friends of the family. They're both big folks. I'm going to say neither one of them comes in lower than 300 pounds, but neither one of them had any real major results from a full-blown infection other than the one lost sense of smell and sense of taste, felt a little fluey for a couple days. The other lost sense of smell for a week maybe. And then that's it. So, it really is kind of random. It isn't the deadliest thing, but a lot of the things that I think that Craig and myself really are most concerned with isn't the flu, isn't the basic effects of this, but are the weird sequelae, the rabies knock-on effects and the crossing the blood-brain barrier shit, the weird stuff this does.
Know enough people that have had this that have these other things that are going on that it's not something I'd like to be exposed to. I understand the general. So here's the thing: the most important thing that people will be worried about is death. Your likelihood of dying from it is not that high.
Very low.
You say it's very low, sure. It's multiples of it's several tens of times that of the flu. But
I think it's twice that of the flu.
It's more than that. It's well over that. But again,
I'm not sure about that. I'm pretty sure it was pretty
that
low.
high.
No, it's not.
But your likelihood of these sequelae is high.
Hold on. Though,
death is not the shittiest outcome.
When we talk about these when we talk about the secondary effects,
sure,
right? over a short duration, we're going to see that. This is a disease. It attacks healthy tissue.
Yeah.
It takes healthy tissue and turns it into unhealthy tissue.
Yes.
And then your body spends a period of time and repairs the damage.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hear these, oh my God, let's be concerned about this secondary effect of the infection, because at the end of the day, I expect that.
Well,
I don't expect to go out for a run and be all hunky dory after I have the flu, 3 days after the last point of my temperature curve. And some diseases are going to be worse
how about
than that, and some diseases are going to be better.
To date, having a doubled likelihood of a heart attack, I'd say that sucks.
I suppose, yeah. If you're over 55, that would really suck.
Just
but
in general, a doubled likelihood of a heart attack.
If you're below the age of 55, the likelihood you have a heart attack is so low that a doubling 2 times 0 is still 0.
Alright, so anyway.
But, again, we're kind of hitting a largely American audience, so it's not necessarily quite so low. I mean, we're talking to a modern Western audience.
So to get back to where we're going with this thing, a vaccine passport, if you're talking about domestic travel, domestic activities, domestic anything, that's stupid.
Yes.
It's been a thing the entirety of our lives and existence in terms of international travel. Basically, if you're from outside the U.S. and you try to get in, try getting in without any of your vaccinations. It ain't happening.
And I do agree for external country visits. That's a thing that's already
as a matter of fact.
already a thing that's very common. You go and you get your vaccines either from heavy recommendation or requirement of the receiving country, because that's a thing the receiving country is allowed to do and does do.
But, and here's the kicker, you get to find out what those things are long in advance. They've already gone through all the appropriate protocols. They're very much well developed, well tested, well approved. We rush something out the door. We put a huge, excessive amount of emphasis.
When the cholera vaccine was around, that wasn't a very long developed thing back in the 60s and 70s, if memory serves.
And that was why
But from that same thing, we can look at the influenza rollout from that era too, that had an entirely disastrous result.
Sure.
We have though, right? So what was it? It was that big
point
drug.
Is you can say that in any decade. You can say that.
No, that's not. That's
absolutely
not
that is a truism, and you know it.
It is not a truism.
Things happened then. We've done things since then. Come on.
No. We have increased the stringency of our safety criteria since that period of time.
Yeah,
that is not a truism.
That is literally a thing you can say at any time in the past relative to now.
Absolutely not. We haven't turned around. So if we take a look back into, say, the 1920s, right?
Have we definitely say 20s?
We can definitely say that our we can definitely say that our restrictions on alcohol haven't increased since the 20s, right? It's
but
not a universal.
That's a non sequitur. That's a non sequitur. You're talking about the health standards when it comes to vaccines.
I guess the big thing for our audience was actually in the 70s and 80s. What kicked off a lot of this stuff that would be pre-cholera vaccine or post-cholera vaccine would be there was 2 drugs. One was something given for heart complications, and it actually made them worse. And the second thing was a drug that introduced a lot of birth defects. It was an anti-morning sickness pill that introduced significant birth defects. And then
what was the name of that drug? I
can't remember.
Saw something recently about it too. Shit.
But it was those. It was that combination. By the way, my grandfather actually died from that heart disease one.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, that was an actual, it was a legitimate thing. He took it because he had, one heart attack, and then it destabilized, it would destabilize your actual heart rhythms and then induce heart attacks. So he had, 6 heart attacks before it finally
It induced fibrillation.
Oh, that's horrifying.
So basically, when we start talking about these safety protocols, the majority of safety protocols were implemented because of those 2 drugs.
Jesus, that sounds like a CIA assassination drug or something.
No. No, it wasn't.
No,
it
that
wasn't
was
anything like that.
Oh.
It was you start talking about things like I can't remember, what is that? Was it mercaptan?
Nope.
No.
Mercaptan. That would be huffing farts, buddy.
Yes. No, it was something like that. I can't remember what it was, but it was an anti-morning sickness drug that created huge birth defects in children. It was like a stupid high rate, and they passed that on less stringent things, and that's one of the reasons why we have the testing period.
Thalidomide. That was it.
Oh,
Thalidomide,
yeah.
yes.
Okay.
And there was actually a couple other things back then, too. And, there's stupid stuff that we've put restrictions on as well, such as artificial sweeteners, right? That was based on, the equivalent of 200 cans of soda a day.
NutraSweet would be one of those things that you shouldn't have, but everybody has it, considering it's fucking formaldehyde.
Yeah, don't... Avoid aspartame, please.
Well,
No, aspartame's not bad.
No, when it breaks down your liver, it is.
Yeah.
Yes and no.
And,
I mean,
and
you have
some
to have
people
a lot of it.
Some people it breaks down more readily than in others.
You still have to have a lot of it. Like,
Yeah,
a lot
you still have to have a lot of it, but
Again,
I knew people
the
who
West.
had a sufficient amount of it that they should have been worrying about it. Like, when you get to the point where you're drinking, like, 10, 20-ounce Diet Cokes a day, I mean, one, you should be cutting back on your fluids in general. But,
Well, you got to have something with your, large fries and large cherry shake and,
this
your
dude was skinny, dude.
chicken sandwich.
As a reference, the studies that showed ill effects on aspartame were conducted at dose rates that were exceeding roughly the equivalent of 200 cans of soda per day.
But again,
roughly an American.
If you are downing 10, 20-ounce bottles of soda in a day, that is a little bit much. That would be like 200 ounces of soda versus your 480 ounces of, or 240 ounces of
So 2 or 3 big
cans.
gulps. Excuse me, super big gulps.
So 2,500. So that's a lot. It's like 10% of that limit, and we usually don't have,
you got to keep in mind that a rat study or a mouse study doesn't directly translate, even though you could get a general idea of.
It's a good correlation.
Well, it depends
well, it's
on
more than a good correlation,
animal,
actually.
It depends on which part of the animal is getting hit by the drug, and the mechanism that's happening. But it gives you an estimate. Like, if it took a lot, it might take a lot for a human. But you have to study it.
But, the reaction is there.
But
you use a rat study or a mouse study to get an idea of what other animal model you need to use to get a good correlation with human studies. Or with
there's more to it than that. The rat studies are usually actually pretty close to humans. Oddly enough, because they eat the same things we do, because they drink the same things we do, and they live in similar social colonies, that's one of the reasons we use rats, is they're very, very cheap analog to humans.
Yeah, so the point is, here, what you do is you use them as the cheap start. They're the pilot study. You figure out what system got impacted by them, by the drug or what have you, and then you pick a better, closer animal analog to that organ system or set of organs in a system in the human.
Or you go with, like a modified mouse or a modified rat, which is what seems to be a lot more common these days because, again, you're working with something you already understand.
Monkey models, so rhesus monkeys, there's ferret models, pig models, all kinds of different animal models that represent different organ systems, and that's if you're going to do the next step in a study with animals, that's typically what you're using as step one is a mouse or rat to figure out what you need. But yeah, certainly on a dose rate basis, it was a ridiculous amount of aspartame that was required. In fact, if you're familiar at all with speaking of prohibition, if you're familiar at all with the way that the mouse studies were done, rat studies were done for thujone with regard to absinthe, it was something like multiple grams of thujone were given to mice, to rats, and they of course died horribly. And that was used to ban alcohol in the U.S.
Yeah, they do that all the time. And that is one of the problems that you have, is that you should follow on research. But when you do sit there and we start talking about something like the aspartame, it was particularly egregious because people were starting to say, hey, you shouldn't drink diet soda, which most people don't have a habit that's 10% of this dose rate.
This guy was in high school. He was a skinny motherfucker, too, because you might imagine with all that caffeine in him.
Yeah.
But he'd drink like 10 of these a day. He'd have like 3 or 4 of them during lunch with us. It's like, holy shit, dude, you need to stop drinking that crap.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I have a diet soda habit too.
Well, like I said, I think like just cutting down on his fluids in general would have been a smart idea.
That might be true. Like, I think I can do like a 2-liter bottle in a day.
Well, artificial fluids. I mean, drinking that much water would be perfectly fine.
Well, the thing is, you should be matching that much with water.
Oh yeah, if you really are drinking a lot of soda and this message somehow reaches you, drink at least as much water. You've got to get that shit back out of you after all.
I don't know. I like it.
If you're drinking caffeine, it's a diuretic. You're dehydrating yourself.
Not at the dose rates they have in soda, though.
Well,
now, if you chug energy drinks nonstop,
there's people that drink monsters like sodas.
The only reason I know about this is because I had to become a pseudo-nephrologist because I have kidney issues. So, for a healthy person, you should be consuming water to replace volume so you don't have an issue. Because people will run into kidney stones, and those are not fun, apparently.
Nah, I got a buddy of mine. I got to figure out what's going on with him. I'll probably sit down.
Like a normal person out there is going to drink water when they need it. So, you should try to drink more water, but you're probably drinking water. But there are people out there who just get sidetracked or don't think about it, etc., and they get to the point where they give themselves a kidney stone, and then they have a fantastic time with that.
Yeah, that's entirely avoidable. Kind of like scurvy today,
it's completely avoidable. That's the fourth part about it.
I haven't had a good case of scurvy in a while.
That's got to be the funniest part in the doctor's office. Not for either person, but for the fly on the wall is the person sitting there realizing I could have completely avoided this, and this is horrific.
Oh yeah, for so long you could do just the tiniest things, and then it'd be a complete non-issue. But yeah, that people get scurvy today anywhere other than on an oil rig.
I mean, I will
really
say that
else.
there are certain things that, like, depending on your diet, you might need to supplement with. So, because I do have a family history with heart disease issues, namely, like I said, my grandfather got terrified when I was running because I'd get cramps in my chest, and it's not that I was actually having a heart attack or anything like that.
Well, that's pericardial inflammation, right?
What? No, not at all. It's just low potassium. You get cramps if you have low potassium. So buddy of mine,
was doing football tryouts with me in high school, and he ended up having a pause, and because he was breathing hard and his chest hurt like hell, he'd been working his ass so hard that he actually pissed off his heart lining.
Really?
Oh
yeah.
Wow.
What you can do if you're breathing hard enough and fast enough, and your heart's beating fast enough, you can irritate the lining there. It's actually not that hard to do, and it does go away relatively quickly. But like for a minute there, you will feel like you have a heart attack.
That sounds a little horrifying.
Yeah, like the trainer was sitting there like trying to calm his ass down, just like, no, you're all right. Get through this.
Yeah, it's in any case that was your diet can absolutely impact that. So I was actually doing keto at the time. It still happens. Oddly enough, I really like keto. It's a good solid diet.
So if you do things kind of right, like intermittent fasting is probably better.
Intermittent fasting is what I do
great
now.
for humans.
Just like skipping a lunch. Like skipping a lunch or a dinner is the kind of intermittent fasting. Like you don't even need to do a whole lot extra there. Just forget a meal every once in a while.
I typically, that's probably closer to what I do right now, even though I try to stick to keto, because I honestly, carbs and I don't get along so well.
Which is fine. That's the way it is for some people.
Yep, it is amazing how shitty I feel. Like, I love my booze, I love my bread, I love eating all that stuff. It's fantastic. But if I eat like a cookie or two, it will make me feel like shit. And so I lived feeling like shit for a really, really, really long time. And then all of a sudden I basically switched over to pretty much pure protein and fat. And it was like,
much better day.
Yeah, I mean, I only need to, I was always tired.
Yeah.
But now it's, I'm back to like 6 hours of sleep a night and no big deal.
It's crazy because, like, I'm the opposite on carbs. I burn them like crazy. That said, though, what happens with me is if I don't have enough fat in my diet, I feel like crap. That's something people don't realize is you do need fat in your diet.
Oh, yeah, you absolutely do.
Yeah, that whole era of low fat was probably one of the worst things that happened in human diets in American history.
You need it in moderation, and you need to work out in order to get rid of it, but you do need it going in.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is that if you actually look at it, if you put fat, the human brain is designed to consume calories, and you can get your calories in a variety of. It is designed to find calories and eat them. And so if you turn around and you start eating things like processed sugar, your brain loves it, but it's never truly satisfied. It doesn't
and for me, it's complex carbs. I can't, like, if I sit there and eat a pound of sugar or whatever, I'm already hypoglycemic. That's just a fucking terrible day for me.
That would be a bad day.
Like grains and stuff, I need to hammer that. I gotta pound grains, otherwise I run out of energy. Cook right through it.
Well, thankfully I don't have either of those specific issues. I just have a bunch of weird food allergies, so,
That sucks.
It is what it is. I've learned to live with it, and I can eat perfectly well. The soy one is a little annoying because it is in fucking everything.
You know what that means? That means Evan here is such a Chad he can't have soy.
That's true. 1,000% alpha status.
We may joke, but soy is actually really bad for you.
Like, there's some new studies that have come out even on that.
Yeah, it is not good stuff. Like, especially if you are a male, it is a bad idea to have soy.
Yeah.
Basically, if you are a male and not at least 60% Asiatic in your genetics, just kind of don't.
Oh, yeah. So actually, a point to bring out on that. So one of the things I end up taking routinely is phosphatidylcholine.
I thought you were going to say a soy latte.
Well, there's a point they made here. It's based on lecithin, and unfortunately, most lecithin in the market comes from soy, but it comes from plenty of other, actually plant and animal sources. So the other common one, which has basically zero of the problems you find with soy, is sunflower.
And you're seeing that a lot more.
So
I have to be so specific with my food searches, I can honestly say that is actually showing up a lot in places.
It's kind of being picked up a lot more. Like lecithin in general is used a lot with like you're making pizza doughs or you're making bread.
It's replacing the soy lecithin as the emulsifier of not of choice because soy is cheap. And
but sunflower certainly is picking up in your higher quality breads. So that's one you can look for, and you might even, if you have a bakery that you like going to, you might even suggest that as another type of ingredient that they can put in there. Tell them you have in your case, Evan, you definitely do, but tell them you've got a soy allergy or something, and see if they'll add that into their ingredients queue and maybe use that.
All you just got to say that I'm allergic to being a pussy, and there you go.
Yeah, that doesn't really go over so well when it comes to the blue-haired person behind the counter.
I mean, it's
even though they might secretly want to screw you.
There is an odd correlation with the boyfriends and hookups of these types. I'll tell you that.
Those posts you find where they're just like, I hate their politics, but I want to screw them so badly. Like, oh God, nobody would want to return the favor.
The thing that's funny with psychology is evolutionary psychology takes a lot of shit from psychology, and there's some bullshit and some good reasons for that. But one of the things that comes up is, and this is what I believe, is biological determinism. We are pre-programmed to do whatever we're going to do pretty much from the onset, and part of that is every aspect of our behavior, and that programming comes from years and years of evolution. Now, we might be able to
Evo-Psych, by the way.
We might be able to sit there and modify our skill set, but we'll never be able to really overcome our behaviors. Some of those behaviors are pro-social behaviors, and they generally reward us for being pro-social behaviors, and we've built our society around these pro-social behaviors. Others are not. But when it comes to mate selection and even just your daily routine, it is a real shame that we spend so much effort in society attempting to suppress our baser instincts. Now, you should never sit there and compromise another individual for your benefit. That would be an antisocial behavior.
Or that'd be making a really good business decision. Kind of depends on how you look at it.
Actually, I would even say that most of the time it's not a good business decision. Right?
Really?
Like
Giving someone something they want when they're sitting there saying, I'm willing to pay for it?
Oh, yeah, well, that's separately. But, what we see when we start talking about the folks who are making these arguments for, like, social justice and whatnot, is they are fundamentally arguing against human nature. Right, and we turn around and they try to do these lofty goals, but if you actually start talking about things like human sexuality, that was one of the biggest problems that Christianity had early on. You can read about it in the Confessions of St. Augustine. Is nearly everybody else was all big pro-sexuality, and like the Jews were pro-sexuality, the pagans were pro-sexuality, and then the Christians came along and decided that they were anti-sexuality. And what ended up happening as a result of that was they did it because they were rising above their animal instincts. That was the claim, so to speak.
They tried to do that.
They tried to do that, but it blew up in their faces, and they like spread rampant amounts of disease, and like it was all prostitution this and.
And then they said, "Hey, let's figure out how to do abortions," and then that didn't work out so well either.
Yep. So I mean, like we can't fight our nature. And that's not to say that you can't be a better person. It's just to say that you can't fight your nature.
That was like 16th century abortions, not modern.
Yeah, kind of.
The idea of falling down the stairs, that kind of shit.
Or,
and also making sure you had your, also making sure that you had your humors properly adjusted, which meant exsanguinating you with leeches.
Well, I mean, that's less Christianity and more like early medicine.
Medieval crazy, yes.
I mean, and it's kind of a shame, too, because I was actually reading an interesting article. It turns out that as much as we disregard... I'm looking at my 3D print, and it's really bothering me because there's, like, this excess line of material. So, like, does it just sit there and start extruding, like, a line around the base of the object just to, like, get stuff through the nozzle?
Yes, that's normal.
Yeah. Okay, all right, because it looks...
So here's the thing. That is always going to be there. If you add a skirt, it will fill in the gap between that and the base of the part. And then a raft is when it puts a little support frame that it constructs all over the entire skirt area that builds up a little bit from the base before it starts actually putting the part.
All right.
So that's always going to be there, and that's exactly what it's for.
Got it. I've got a little bit... Looks like some of these things are going to need to be cleaned up. I might be running my extruder a little bit too hot. But...
Is it bubbling?
No, it's not bubbling. It's very stringy. So there's a couple points where... I mean, that could just be dust coming in on the filament.
Oh, what you'll want to do for that is print out one of the temperature test units, and you'll be able to... actually see how that works out.
Do both. That'll help you figure it out. There's little arches in it.
Yeah, the boat is such a classic.
It looks like it sorted itself out once it got like
or make a calibration cube. If you print calibration cubes, that'll help you with a quick print. That'll give you an idea about your dimensional stability, which is partly related to the temperature because of sag, stuff like that.
I think it's actually doing okay now. I just think it was for whatever reason, some of the initial filament that it was extruding was a little bit wonky. But everything else seems to be doing okay. Could also be a little bit of an odd space in the bed, but I don't think so.
Well, that's the
close
thing.
to get into my test prints. Keep trying to assemble the thing, and one or two things stops me. So I'll get it.
Well, my goal right now is just to get my damn blower part made because I think I threw that out because I didn't know what it was.
Like I said, the slowest print you can tolerate to get the best dimensional stability, lowest temperature that you can work with. That'll give you decent fusion. Then when you do your second iteration, you can step it up a little bit so that you'll get better reentanglement across the weld line, just for a little bit of added support. But you also want to print with full infill, so that's a solid part. Don't worry about it impacting the way that the thing moves around. You're talking about a few grams of plastic hanging on the end of it.
The first one that I'm doing is going to be this print, and then the second one. So once I have that on there, and I have some level of blowership on there, I'll go back through and do another one. That'll be like the second print I do is going to be the same thing I did the first time. It's just going to be like with it actually working the way it's supposed to.
Right.
So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so where were we? Oh yeah, we were talking about medieval medicine. So there was actually something interesting with some of the stuff. We like to think of this as the Dark Ages, but surprisingly, they actually had a lot of interesting, legitimate.
They had a lot of stuff right.
Well, I mean, the Egyptians had functional brain surgery that people didn't die from all the time.
Well, yeah, but then again, fucking Neanderthal age people had that shit too.
Yeah.
Skull. I can't remember what the name of it was. I think it started with an R, but like basically they cut a piece of the skull out, and they you can find they found whole tribes of these people that had these ritually cut out pieces of their skull. I mean, that's not. I suppose you could say that isn't technically brain surgery so much as it's skull surgery, but.
I mean, still, the majority of you're not going to get an infection from using crude stone tools. No, but I mean, there's other things there. So, for instance,
a brain infection, more importantly, because holy shit,
there was a very impressive. Somebody actually went through and started. They found some doctor's notes for like various ointments and some of the other stuff, and they actually had medicinal properties if they were brewed to their original standard.
Oh,
right?
Certainly.
And they were basically introducing things like antibiotics without having the actual modern antibiotics.
Right.
It's really impressive.
It is impressive, but more importantly, when you come and look at these things today, not only do some of these these remedies still work, obviously, they aren't going to have lost whatever potency they had because of time and if you're going to prepare it today, but the vast majority of these kinds of things, and I say vast majority meaning definitely not all. Most of them have been explored, and because they have been explored and they've been appropriately refined and standardized and used as treatments, they're just called medicine. And the majority of alternative medicine in that regard, and I'll say this, the majority of alternative medicine purporting to be medicine in this regard is alternative because it failed the test of being medicine.
There's some things. There's some stuff where we go back through the notes that they're discovering. Yeah.
Well, a lot of that, too, is just that the studies haven't been done as well.
Yeah, this is why I say, like, the vast majority, meaning definitely not all. There's stuff that still exists in folk medicine and what have you that just hasn't been looked at yet.
Well, and that was what they were doing, is they were going through actual physician notes from the medieval, Dark Ages, as we consider it. And like, what were they doing? And we always kind of dismiss it as quackery because, let's be honest, most of it
the rationale is all bullshit, but the actual practice comes out of trial and error in a pseudo-scientific sense. They can post hoc rationalize to their heart's content, but the fact that the person didn't die is kind of a good indicator that they're not dead. Right.
And that's the we laugh at things like slitting somebody's wrists and collecting.
Well, it's kind of a morbid laugh. Since there's nothing you can do about it now because they died thousands of years ago. or hundreds of years ago. Depending on which people you're looking at. In that sense, it's hilarious how backwards it is, and the most funny part is that they survived.
Yep.
I mean, it is one of those nature's mysteries things where you're just like, wow, how the fuck did we not kill ourselves?
Humans are a particularly resilient species.
Well, in about 1,000 years, or probably even 100 years at this rate, we're going to look back and go, how the hell did we avoid bombing the shit out of ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, there's a
Or we'll
lot of
just do
chances
that.
we've had to destroy ourselves over the very recent past, and we have managed to avoid it. But I tell you what, there's some people that seem to keep wanting to push those same goddamn buttons all the time.
Yeah,
Well,
every crisis that comes about, or almost comes about.
It is exasperating. Oh, speaking of exasperating, this one goes out to you, Steve. Have you heard that we got, and as another lucky chance of not being able to record last night, we get a lucky number 9 for Cuomo.
I mean, he's better.
With Gloria Allred today, yes.
No.
Oh, that wasn't it?
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised, but no, this one apparently has photographs of the alleged
love
thing.
to see that.
Conference about the kissing.
Yeah, another grabbed her face and kissed her kind of deal.
How was that appropriate?
Oh my god.
No, I saw it on Twitter and I started laughing. Just like I just remember her from Rat Race, being the horrible person she is in Cameo.
I mean, she's always a pretty terrible person. I don't know. You know what?
Her and her daughter. Her daughter is following in footsteps. It's disgusting.
I stand very firmly with. You gotta give Cuomo a lot of credit that he hasn't backed down. Unlike all the Republicans and the rest of the Democrats, he's like, whatever, fuck you. And I love it.
He knows exactly the
it.
game that's being played.
He does. He does know the game that's being played.
He fucking instigates it half the time.
Well, no, I mean, I don't think that he's the one who instigates it half the time, but I suspect that it has been...
Last year, I would say he more than half of the time instigated that shit.
I suspect
we're doing great with the ventilators. By the way, Trump suck a dick. Oh, also, we need help. By the way, fuck your ship.
I suspect that what we're really seeing is kind of confirmation that the whole entire like Me Too thing is just being used by Democrats as a weapon. And the thing is, I'm guessing they briefed major members of their party to it, and so he's just like, whatever, I'm just going to weather the storm because they can't get rid of him. They can't get rid of him for this stuff because it's all like he said, she said, A, and then B, you'd have to actually go through the legal process to remove him.
Well,
and
like,
all the time, all of these assholes...
I thought the first news that came out had documentation, though.
Even if they do, they still have to go through the legal process to remove him. Part of the problem that we've had up until this point is that basically everybody acts like a giant fucking pussy. And, they cave, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, they sit there and they grasp their friggin' pearls, and they cry out to the night that, oh my god, how unfair of this, such a terrible thing must never have happened, and he's just like, yeah, whatever, go fuck yourselves. And that's fantastic. I actually respect the man more as, like, the Me Too shit doesn't bother me. The fact that he is weathering the storm is fantastic, because A, it means that we are coming to the end of the Me Too era.
Uh-oh.
Right? That's what it means.
Yeah, don't necessarily take issue with that, if I'm being totally honest.
I think you might have to have an intervention here. It sounds like he's one of these 50 Shades of Grey 50-year-old lesbians. Waiting for Cuomo to come in and turn them away from their deviancy.
No. I would love to see him get ousted for his actual decisions. But I think the upside of Cuomo doing what Cuomo is doing, if Cuomo resigns, the Me Too era, let's call it an error. The Me Too error continues on indefinitely. If Cuomo does not resign...
It's the same shit with a different name as every other time.
You know what? I am okay with them sitting there and coming to the conclusion that that weapon is dull and that they can't move forward with it. I think that's better than sitting there and ramming this stuff down our throat.
Well, the thing is, it's not going to stop even if this does fall apart, because they're just going to keep using it as a weapon. They won't be able to use it against him. I mean, if we're being completely honest here.
Well, Cuomo is undoubtedly at some point here going to try and make his case for being presidential material.
I don't think so. I think that's over.
Yeah, that's done.
After
the party.
This whole thing with COVID, I think he's still probably going to try and push it. He might not get it.
Yeah,
and he might do it. He might do it vicariously. He might have someone push his name in the ring during a convention, but I bet you it's still going to happen.
I don't know. I think that ship has sailed.
And
he might even be the one.
I gotta be honest. I really think it's a bridge too far, considering everybody in the party has disowned the man. He's not that stupid. I mean, he can't be that stupid.
And let's be very clear. There's a huge difference between Democrats and Republicans. In that, and I'm not saying that they're not the uniparty. I'm not saying that I love Republicans, because I don't. I hate them just as well. I hate them for.
You're an independent person.
I hate them for different reasons than I hate the Democrats. But the Democrats, incompetence, pussiness, pick a verb. Like they're spineless idiots is really what it comes down to. So the Democrats are like. I don't want to call them smart, but they know how to control dumb people. Is really what the Democrats are. That's what their party is control dumb people, right? The Republicans, on the other hand, are literal spineless weasels who don't know what the fuck they're doing and can't manage to get their shit in a row when they actually somebody sat there and told me the Republican Party is just really great at snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. And there's no better example of that than them coming into power as they did, which was a much larger majority in both the House and the Senate in 2016. And they had that for 2 years, and they did, nothing. Meanwhile, the Democrats are attempting to reshape the entire country in the first 3 months that they have barely a 50% majority in either. Right? So, the Republicans snatch defeat from the jaws of victory on a regular basis, and they should be shamed for that.
Well, you got these America Last rhinos that are kind of just pushing that whole party line and saying that we've got to aid our allies and do all of this and help out everybody else and make sure that we've got all those poppies, they've got to be watched after by our best boys over there in Afghanistan so the Sacklers can have a regular source of poppy opium to turn into product for the American citizens that are in such desperate need.
I suspect it probably has more to do with the fact that the Democrats largely appeal to collectivists and Republicans appeal to individualists, and the individualists are not willing to sit there and put their name on something that they don't 100% agree on or that might blow up in their face. If there's any risk at all in what they're trying to pass, they won't do it, and they don't want anything to possibly hurt their stuff. Whereas the Democrats, they don't care because they know that each district that they're in is going to vote blue no matter who.
Oh, yeah. I mean, not to mention they've got all those graveyard votes.
That phrase tells you everything you need to know about the mentality of the person using it, doesn't it?
Right. It really does. It really does. And that's...
I'm a lemming and I'm proud of that. Okay.
Well, it's... God damn, this is really amazing watching the 3D printer actually work.
They are really freaking cool technology.
It'll get old quick when you try to get some sleep.
Now, I want to toss out that you two assholes were full of shit when you said that it would come up in a day of effort.
Yeah,
well, you weren't supposed to have broken parts.
It's not my fault they were broken.
It's not my fault they were broken. I broke them.
I didn't break them. They're shit to be broken. I can't believe.
It sounds to me like it's more of a you problem.
Oh yeah.
Well,
I
fair
couldn't
enough,
believe when I sat there and I took that set screw out of the aluminum block and then
that strip set screw is insane, man.
I sat there I was like, okay, why is this thing not turning? And then I finally got it to turn to the left. And as I turn it, this little strip of material comes out as it's turning. I'm like, oh, please. please say that they put thread sealant in there. Please say that's how it fucked up. And then it's like clearly a chunk of metal. I'm like, all right, maybe I can put it back in the hole and there's nothing that's going to be wrong. And I get it all the way in, and it won't tighten. And I'm like, all right, let's see if I can actually pull it out just with pliers. I pull it out and it just like falls out. I was like,
Yeah.
I can't believe they cross-threaded the set screw in the aluminum block.
Oh, man.
Called the threads right out, didn't they?
They did.
Gah.
Well, I guess that's
man.
one benefit of mine being completely disassembled to every small component. I was able to inspect it entirely as it went together.
Well, so was mine. But I wasn't inspecting the set screw on the heating block there.
Well, my set screw wasn't installed on mine's all I'm gonna say. Not when it came to me.
Oh, yours wasn't?
Well, you see, either it got shipped to you with the set screw in it, which is what the original story was, or you got all your parts shipped to you separately and you installed the set screw wrong.
No, I got it in a kit.
Yeah, okay.
So the entire heat block assembly, I did not put that together.
Right, that's what I thought.
That includes the Teflon throated tube,
Right.
the little metal thing, the nozzle. Like, I had no idea what that heat block looked like taken apart. So I just saw it as a thing of wires going in there, and so I've been trying to shop online, not exactly knowing what I was looking at because I hadn't bothered to take it apart.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's actually going.
Yeah, I will say this, having had to get so intimately familiar with the thing, I know quite a lot more about 3D printers than I would had I just, gone out and bought one.
Right.
Yeah, and I will say that for whoever's listening, that if you want to try 3D printing, I will definitely recommend getting a RepRap kit and just going from scratch. It's worth it for the learning experience.
And if you're not going to work with them, if you aren't going to make several of them, or you're not going to work with them ever beyond doing the hobbyist stuff at home, definitely get yourself one of the kits to build it yourself. If you're doing this stuff professionally or in any kind of academic capacity, just buy the completed printer because it'll save you a bunch of time and you can get to the work that you actually mean to do.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I guess you could say, unless you're wanting to do this as one of these RepRap printers could actually make a really cool class project. I would say at middle school, high school level.
Sure. If you're talking about from the research end, because it's like part of my group is in 3D printing, and I've worked with other groups in 3D printing. Some of the stuff I worked with is gone on to be involved with 3D printing, and doing it yourself the once is great. But when you're working with these things all the time, and you already kind of know the ins and outs of them because of what you need to do for your research, just getting the completed unit is so much faster.
Yeah, I won't even go into the amount of time that I've got put into building this machine.
After the first one, once you get your second one, you just get the thing pre-built, and then you'll know all the different parts from your prior experience. You can easily fix things. It's so much easier if it just comes to you ready to go. More or less ready to go.
I can see that, but how did you build the one down in your sex dungeon there that prints your girlfriend for you? I mean, realistically, you just have to go in to edit the file that sits there and changes the dimensions, and you could build something that's any size. And you'd need like the
That's the other thing is once you've kind of figured out the general scope of things, what you can do is get yourself some aluminum extrusion and use that as your frame basis.
You really can.
Yeah, well, so that's why I did the work with NASA. That was what they did theirs based on, was aluminum extrusion.
Yeah, I'm
so
very. It's a very simple machine once it gets going. Like, it sounds really cool, but it's really simple.
Yeah. Well, there's all kinds of ways to complicate it just by trying to make it actually do its job better. Even more.
I mean, that's true for almost anything, though.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I'll throw a link into the Showlinks for everybody for a really nice printer that's going to come either assembled or as its own kit. They haven't got a release date as of yet, But these are the guys that made the printer that I've got. As a matter of fact, I'll throw in the link for you guys too, so you can check it out.
Let's see if I can find the one that I've got on hand. My current workhorse.
But it's a Maker Tech is what I've got.
Mm-hmm.
Just on the edge of getting it together. But this new one's actually, it's got its own box, so it's its own enclosure. It's got a switching head, and it can do some pretty intricate stuff. So, if you're not in a rush and you want to get something that could be good for engineering or art applications, this one might be up your alley.
Yeah. So I can also recommend a Lulzbot. Those are good printers, just generally speaking. Most PrinterBot printers are also good. This is similar to the one I've got. Maybe
I think if I was to do it in the future, I would probably try to build one solely myself out of rep parts now that I got one going.
I think that's what I may end up doing with my next one. Just build something big and just go wild.
Could you imagine building like a room-sized 3D printer?
Oh, that would be so cool.
So I actually
that would
saw
be like
BAM.
So cool.
So here's the thing: if you ever have a chance, go to ORNL and check out the BAM printer.
That's right. There was one that was actually
reactors?
Just recently.
No, that's the one that prints.
Kickstarted.
That's the one that prints the fucking Humvees.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I had to go see that one in person. That was cool.
Oh, that sounds.
But
dope.
I mean, if I had the space for it, I would absolutely do like a room-sized printer, and it wouldn't be that hard to do.
It's got a fucking single-screw extruder mounted onto the arm of it. It can do 2 different materials at once. It's nuts, and it does a 6mm extrusion filament.
I could totally see that if you had a barn space or something like that, where you could just sit there and build something into the pylons and just start printing whatever you wanted. A vehicle would not be that hard. Especially if as long as your vehicle is plastic. But actually, you probably could pull it off if you did aluminum or something like that. Like, aluminum's pretty low melting point.
Yeah, we're just about there, as a matter of fact.
I was just telling Evan about this yesterday with the hot end I had designed for a research project. The upper end of it was purposely to allow for the printing of certain alloys, and the material. The only reason we had an upper bound on the temperature that was being supplied was because the material of the hot end was going to be an aircraft grade aluminum, a titanium aluminum alloy, and the melting point of that was 760 C-ish, and so we capped it off at 700 because just with the stresses involved, it was still so far below yield with the kind of force we're going to be loading in with the motor. The final project when it was constructed ended up having a maximum temperature in code, a hard limit of 500, but it could have gone to 700.
I mean, I can see how.
That's to be able to print
Now
Magnolian.
the question is, when they do gun buybacks, how much can I print out?
What you should do is go with exponential increases. All you have to do is get yourself some of those NEMA steppers and a couple boards, and some hot ends, unless you have an SLS, in which case you can print hot ends too. And just go ahead and give yourself a fuck ton of printers for the first few days.
Well, see,
and then go ahead and print out all your guns.
What I would do is I would print out enough to buy me the materials that I need, because it's not going to be like a one-day event, right? So you buy.
Oh no, it'll absolutely be a one-day event when you show up like that. No, I can guarantee. Actually, something like that just recently happened. And a guy.
Could you imagine?
Yeah. The one in Florida where the guy showed up with the fucking piece of wood.
Yeah. So there's this thing. I'll just share it with all our listeners because just an audio description is actually adequate for you to understand the gunsmithing involved in this and make your own. So here's your lesson for the day. It's called a 4 Winds shotgun. You get a piece of 2x4, roughly the length of a stock. It doesn't even have to be comfortable. You get a set of half-inch. Is it half-inch? No. Whatever 12-gauge fits in. I can't remember offhand. 12-gauge pipe, and then a cap at one end. You put it in the one end and into the cap. There's a little hole you drill in. Yeah. You drill a little hole in the cap on the other end that slides over the other side of the pipe. You put a little bit of a nail in there, cut it to the right length, bada bang, bada boom. It works.
Yeah, firing
Simple as that. And you've now made yourself a completely functional firing 12 gauge. You can make these on the span of a few dollars a pop.
Yeah,
and,
so it sounds like if you get yourself about $20 or $30 for the parts, you got 2 or 3 guns.
Oh yeah, at least. Maybe even a little bit more and a couple of leftover parts.
The way different things have been going in hardware stores, just if you go and look at the cost of wood right now, it's gone up.
Oh my god.
Yeah, okay, fair
it's
point there.
stupid expensive.
Yeah.
I have to put down subfloors in my bathroom, and that's going to be like $100.
Damn.
Just for 2 sheets. 2 sheets of plywood.
Right.
Oh man.
Yeah, plywood's gone up for no. I mean, well, we know what the reason is, but like for no apparent reason. It's
for no good reason, we can say.
No good reason is definitely a good way to put it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the upside is, again, and this is what we talked about months ago, is that you should be buying hard assets. Things like land, things like property. If you go through and you listen to us months ago, then when this inevitably implodes, and it will implode, and it will implode in a spectacular fashion, you'll be okay.
Well, a good thing to have as an asset is a large stockpile of filament and some 3D printers.
Well,
apparently that's going to be tradable for all the cash in the world.
So how much did that guy make by bringing in his wooden
he made like
gun?
$200.
No, he brought in 3 at $250 a pop.
That was it's like he made $200 on them.
No, he made
each.
700. Oh no, not even that. He probably made like $240 each on the 250 of them.
Fair enough. Okay, yeah.
So yeah, the guy walked out of there with.
Can you link the link to that?
It was in the armpit of Florida, or near the Panhandle.
All right, hold on. Everything in Florida is part of the armpit of Florida.
No, a lot of it's part of the wang.
Okay, let's see here. I've got it from Pensacola, I think. Oh yeah, they were labeled 1776 boomsticks. I found the Reddit thread on it.
That was it, yeah. I love looking at the cop's face.
I'll link you guys to the Reddit thread, and I'll throw it in the links for everybody else, because this is just a fun
Look at that
read.
cop's face on the far side of the tent. Look at his face, and look at the utter defeat in it.
Yeah, it is not the face of a man that is happy at all.
This is gonna be great. It's just a pipe.
Yeah.
The best part is like, all right, prove it, and then it works, and like, oh shit.
And then the guys outside of there that were doing a real buyback, they've got a sign that says, see me to get fair market value for your firearm, and they ended up buying like 2 or 3 guns off of people that were coming in to do the buyback.
Yeah, so like supposedly the purported secondary or primary, depending on who you're talking to, goal of this thing was to get stuff out of the pawn shops, and into custody, which is fucking retarded. Why not just go buy them?
This is great. The gun club showed up to counteroffer by paying actual market for guns, and then all they were able to sell was BB guns and the 1776 pipe guns. That's great.
Yeah.
Freedom is a wonderful thing.
Full-on Florida moment right there.
Oh my god, he's got 3 of them in that case. This is great.
Yeah, they apparently ran out of money inside of 30 minutes because of all this. Which, just, bravo, noble patriot.
And I'm honestly, like, once I get this thing fully, like, once I get the upgrades done, so the printer that I have has a lot of safety questionable choices.
Yeah.
So one of them is the firmware, which you should upgrade the firmware from the stock to, like, was it Marlin 1.19 at a minimum, just so that you have it fail if the thing overheats. Like,
so it depends on which printer you get. If you get the pre-assembled ones, you're probably going to be good with the firmware they have for a good long time.
Oh, but that's no fun.
I'm just saying.
And
like,
they cost like 3 times as much.
Once you get through all the fun of making one yourself, like sometimes it's worth the extra cost, like because you're talking about.
It depends on your needs and the amount of time you're willing to throw at it.
Ones on Amazon for like $100 or like $100, $150.
I mean, I see Ender 3s come up all the time for $150.
Yeah, Ender 3s,
and
$240.
And that's not even garbage. It's actually completely okay.
Well, I have a mono price, which is a ripoff of a Chinese knockoff of a ripoff. Just to give you the entire chain of how bad that is.
The Ender 3, so I paid $160 for mine, and the Ender 3 is like $180.
Right.
Yeah, so that's pretty normal. But you don't have to put together the Ender 3?
So basically, with these single frame ones like that, like you just have to bolt that upright part on.
That's not too bad. Like one thing I will say that I would love to dive into is, why is it that my friggin' Z-axis keeps unaligning itself? That's pissing me off.
You got backlash on your screw. That's part of it.
Think so?
All screws have backlash, yes, because of the stepper motor. You're gonna have whatever the stepper motor backlash is. You're gonna have that, and then it's gonna be depending on how you do your print, more or less that times your mechanical advantage. So you should always have So if you put the you have the auto alignment probe on the front of it, right? So.
No, not yet.
Okay,
so I bought a sensor and I couldn't get it to fit, and the reason is because they sent me the wrong mounting bracket. So I looked into sitting there like, could I go print it? Yeah, I could. Yeah. But I said, fuck it, I'll just buy another one.
Zero out, obviously.
What's that?
I said you know how to zero out at this point, obviously. So what you do is you bring it down and you put a piece of paper underneath it, standard printer paper, and you wait until
I've been using cardstock.
Wait until sliding a printer paper to the side is just hardly tugging against the tip.
I've been using cardstock, and that actually looks like it did pretty well.
I'm sure, like it's probably gonna be decent either way. I'm just saying,
that'll be.
The way I got good prints is because I have a Hall sensor to just detect when it gets close to the metal base because I have the printer bought simple metal.
Yep.
And so it'll just detect when it gets close to the metal, but it can move that thing up and down. And so what I did was I got it really well calibrated with that piece of paper, left it in position, and then just, with the 2 wrenches, I just kind of jiggled it around until I got, the RCH off of where it needed to be, and I get it so that the light was just flickering where the paper was, just catching the tip. And that basically got me perfect prints every time after that.
I got it to the point where it was aligned so that like half a screw turn on each corner would bring it to the point where it would like collide with the edge and be a little bit tough to pull through. And then I would move it, back it off like half a screw turn from that. And that would be where I'd go. And that seems to be like it's not as exact as like you read these things online and everybody's like, oh, it's this exactly. And you're like, nope. No, it's not exactly like that. It's close enough.
You have thermal expansion and all kinds of other shit going on there. That's going to make your exact statement exactly wrong.
Right.
Yeah, that just, unfortunately, isn't quite how it works.
So, like, between 2 different materials, I might recalibrate based off of the kind of temperature difference I'm going to have to deal with. Or I might just I might adjust the Z height of the print by a fudge factor to make sure that I've compensated for a thermal expansion issue so I don't drag the end of the nozzle across the plate. And you always, for instance, I recommend, even with glass, I'll recommend this just because it saves you time with prying shit and getting good adhesion. You put down a layer of painter's tape, a single thickness layer, edge to edge, and then you use glue stick to get yourself good adhesion.
See, I actually
all that stuff I do. I have the tape down before I do the paper thing.
I will say that I read a couple people say get Aquanet, and I can honestly support it. I've only gotten one thing.
I have heard good things about using
done.
hairspray.
It is actually, so the first thing that I got off of it is just absolutely beautiful.
Some people use spray tack, which is
that was when the heater part pulled out. But you'd look at the glass part; it came off cleanly. It adhered appropriately during the whole entire thing. I mean, apparently people are looking for like shiny fucking bottoms for whatever reason. But the hairspray is easy. It takes me maybe 3 seconds to apply it, and I'm probably not even going to apply it to each and every individual print.
Oh, that's fair. And I've heard that myself. That'd probably be good advice for anybody that happens to be listening that's wanting to get into 3D printing for that matter as well.
It is, like, the Aquanets, it's like $3. You just take your glass panel, you go, and you're done.
Now, I have metal, so that I could do that, but it's going to be more problematic. So I got glue sticks.
Yeah, I said, fuck it, for $20, I might as well get the glass. If I don't, I tried doing the painter's tape, and it started, like, not adhering right away, and I was like, all right, screw it. So I had to take the first painter's tape off the thing because I did a whole phase where I did, like, experimental beard oils, and that stuff dribbled everywhere.
On your
I was
printer?
actually, so more specifically, I wasn't doing experimental beard oils at the time. I was looking for so you only use a little bit of your essential oils when you're making the beard oil. So I was actually looking to figure out an appropriately temperatured mix between more expensive ingredients and less expensive ingredients. So I wanted to use coconut oil and olive oil and find out at what mixture do they work. And then because I had my window open outside and I happened to be doing this in the late summer, early fall, as the temperature fluctuations were coming in, I found out that beard oil is a little bit of a problem with coconut oil, as it solidifies at a much lower temperature, and it's all the impurities that solidify, and those impurities solidify regardless of whether it's mixed in with anything. So you need like an 80% olive oil to 20% coconut oil mixture, which is just a shame because it just doesn't have that silky feel.
I guess I'll have to take your word for it. I've never used beard oil.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Makes your beard feel oily.
And as a pro tip for anybody at home, when you run out of lube, coconut oil, excellent replacement. Fantastic. Works every time. You can buy it in multi-gallon jars, so it's very economical.
Yeah, and, it is food grade. So there's
It
that.
is food grade. It is. And, it moisturizes while providing the appropriate level of texture and softness that you need.
Well, there you go. So everyone's got to learn something new today.
That's as long as I can help if I help one person achieve climax a week, I am a happy person.
Well, that's a good way to look at it.
Hey, you know what?
Preferably 2 in the household, right?
Well, I mean, there's 20 subscribers. At least one of them has to have it work.
There you go. So I've actually got a little bit of other interesting good news that I don't know if you guys heard about this, but I know you would have heard about the original, the guys that had planned to kidnap Whitmer and put her on trial for whatever.
They got acquitted of terror charges. Or
Indeed they did.
Or excused or whatever.
Aww.
They will not...
They'll not be facing them anyway.
Yeah, they won't be facing the terrorism charges. They'll certainly have other things, like some conspiracy charges and all that, but the major
they'll probably
charges
also have guilty of being Trump supporters in Michigan charges.
Well, not all of them. The ringleader apparently was an anarchist who hated Trump, but, beyond that.
I imagine that it's actually a lot harder to convict them of these kinds of charges, considering she was charged as being, her policy was actually like ruled as legitimately unconstitutional.
Yeah, it was.
And, it's going to be very difficult if you argue in court that these people are terrorists when the court kind of sided with their point of view.
Yeah.
Like, they might have been crazy, but at the end of the day, you have the right to recall your political leaders. It doesn't have to be
I mean, you may not want to
popular
do
vote.
it through this method.
No, I'm just saying that, you know, if I had a couple guys in a van, Andrew Cuomo and I might have a nice little chat.
But, you know, I have to say that I would disavow any such things, and that you don't have a couple of guys
So
or a van. So that's not really something about which any listening handlers need to be concerned.
I would find that to be extremely funny in the news, though.
I would too.
That would, and I think that we would probably be missing a co-host the following week.
I am just kidding. By the way, for anybody who wants to report me to the FBI, that's okay. So
I mean, I want to report you to the FBI anyway because I find that hilarious too.
But I mean, I am actually kind of surprised, and it's kind of sad that, despite the fact that Cuomo did things like murder everybody's grandma.
Oh, and murder everybody's autistic cousin too. We've got that one coming up as well recently. And they, in the help homes and all of that shit, where a bunch, what is it? Intellectually disabled, autistic people, all that kind of thing.
Mentally disabled.
And they still haven't rescinded those orders.
They do not like the terms mentally disabled, retarded, or any of the rest.
Intellectually disabled.
We call them journalism majors. That is the correct term.
I mean, I hear that they like to be called gamers, but unfortunately they can't play any.
Yeah.
Going for the spicy of the meatballs.
Yeah. Well,
although I have heard also that as a form of inclusion for diversity's sake, all devs are encouraged to include an easy mode called journalism mode.
You know, I believe it.
Well, at least a few have taken them up on that often, so we can thank them for that. And I'm sure all the journalists out there appreciate having the ability to be more of a spectator in an interactive medium.
I'm very impressed with. What's really funny to me is like I said, I came into the whole culture war, edgelord thing through Gamergate, and what surprises me is as much as those of us who were in Gamergate mock everybody who says it's just like Gamergate, I kind of agree with them, just on the opposite side of things. Because we're basically seeing all of the same tactics in the media and from the major folks who push the whole thing.
Well, they can't come up with anything new.
Well, that's because the same shit was going on well beforehand. For instance, the Game Journal Pros list, that was modeled
that was an offshoot of the Journo list.
That was the Journo Pros list. Literally modeled off the same. Like if they ever and they knew it was a scandal beforehand too. That was the stupid thing. Is they literally knew this was wrong and they still did it anyway.
Yeah, collusion among media makers.
They had a conversation inside the Game Journal Pros list about Journo Pros leaks. You know, oh God, could that happen to us? It's like, well, funny enough, it kind of did. So.
It is stunning, though.
And brave.
It is stunning and brave.
Indeed, it absolutely is. And that's our current year. Isn't it wonderful?
Yep. Well, I have to turn in here.
So
almost now.
No, it's understandable. It's been a pleasure having you, sir.
12 o'clock. Holy shit, I should probably turn in, too.
All right, well, if you guys want, we can just call it an early night on this one and wish everybody a fine evening. We've got a couple of other interesting topics, but nothing really topical that we have to go over now that we haven't already. So,
well, I can say everybody have a happy, healthy, productive, and wonderful week, and keep your dick in a vice.
Absolutely.
Oh my God! I just found a 3D printed ball clock. My wife is going to kill me, but this is amazing.
Print it, put it under her pillow, and don't tell her a fucking thing until she sees it.
Absolutely.
I've got a whole list of things that have to be made, just because I need to like try to make my printer not a fire hazard. But
that can be up. Like, when's their birthday coming up? Because that's the time to use it.
Whatever saves me money.
No, that is.
So out of curiosity, what is the cheapest? Is ABS or PLA cheaper to print with?
PLA.
Oh yeah, absolutely PLA. ABS is good material, but it's a lot more finicky.
Yeah,
So
PLA
is going
to be the smooth ride for you, generally speaking.
Or PETG for that matter.
PETG is okay.
Is there a cheaper way than buying kilogram rolls on Amazon?
Well, yeah, there is, but unfortunately, it's going to give you it's going to be much more annoying for you. Buy pellets and then extrude them.
See, I didn't see that much. I did a long time ago. I did.
You only get yourself a 25 kilogram bag of PLA pellets. You'll pay 1/30th the price
of a kilogram roll.
1/30th to 1/10th of the price of 25 kilogram rolls.
Really?
Yeah,
How
because
much
it's a huge difference. Why? Because nobody has a fucking extruder hanging around their home.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, but I will build.
People who are weird like me.
I will build an extruder.
Well, there you go.
I don't imagine.
Here's what you do: go onto eBay. I shit you not, and look for an Arborg all-rounder. Probably a 225 will be what you look for. Those are 35-ton injection molders. Those would be an injection molder you could use, or just find yourself.
What are they called?
So this is an injection molder, mind you. So this is a bit heavier duty, but so Arborg makes good injection molders and extruders. And the thing is, their resale value is ridiculous. The one that we had working in our lab when I first got there, that thing was made 2 years before I was born. And they sell for $5,000, around there. And you just have to make sure you have the hookups in your home. It's usually pickup only. Like, if you can find them and you can go get it, it probably costs you about a quarter to half as much as the thing is actually bought for in order to transit the thing. But it's worth it just because it's relatively cheap compared to getting a new extruder or a new injection molder.
Yeah, plastic production is actually pretty expensive. People don't really understand, but it's a heavy outset. But then once it's there, it's done. I mean,
$5,000 for an injection molder is stupid cheap. Like, the molds are the expensive part, to be honest here.
Look, I get that, but I imagine that I could get a 1.75 millimeter tip and attach it to a screw and a heating coil for a lot less than that.
So you see, here's the thing: is I have one of these desktop extruders. It's funny. I backed it on Kickstarter. It was made by a mechanical engineer at UF. So I almost knew the damn guy. And it's basically just an auger bit inside of a pipe with a heater on the end with a PID.
Yeah, that's all it should be.
Yeah, the problem is it's actually pretty terrible.
Really?
See, I'm a bit of an elitist in this sense in that I actually work with real fucking extruders, and I gotta tell you, it's not a real extruder. And if you want to clean that fucker out, good goddamn luck. So basically what that means is, regardless of what you do, you're going to be purging instead of pulling, screwing, cleaning. So if you want to make serious quantities of filament for yourself, if you're doing just the benchtop stuff, you may as well get one of those little hobbyist things, the desktop extruders, because they're all going to be, again, the same basic thing: an auger bit inside of a pipe with a heater on one end and
considering they're only $98.
Right. But they're going to make shit quality filament. And here's the other thing: if any metal gets sent through and you don't see it and you don't clip it out, and it gets down into your
So why would you have metal going through on?
Because it's a damn auger bit, which is sharp, inside of a metal pipe, which is probably galvanized and it's rough, and so little chips of metal come out. So you have to purge probably a kilogram or two before you get the majority of the metal shards that are going to form out of the thing.
Got it. Yeah, but then you can,
Takes a while. Yeah, just saying that the
now that said, if you've got a lathe or something and you want to bore your own tube, maybe.
Yeah, you bore a tube and you ream it, then you're probably good.
You know, or if you want to spend the money on ordering the parts from, I don't know, shipping MasterCard or something, you could probably do it.
Yeah.
But then you're spending kind of more money than you wanted to. So.
But I was going to say here, if you go on eBay and you find yourself an old extruder, I'll go to eBay and check it out myself and see if they even have these things still.
Well,
I guess the weird part for me is the pellets. I struggle to believe that the bag of 20.
It's much cheaper. I know this because I have to actually print out it. Like, it's so cheap. These plastics are so cheap, and they are marked up because people don't have extruders at home, and they don't have the ability to get the kind of tight tolerances that they get with these bigger extruders. Keep in mind, like, they have a floor space to draw the filament through a water bath, make sure it's under tension, and make sure it's properly lined up, and then to wind it onto one of these wheels for you. So that is a price markup that begins it. Then they add in, like, a 30 or 40% markup in cost, and then on top of that, there's a 20-odd% that Amazon takes. So by the time you get it, it is way past the cost of the raw plastic. But again, there is actual value built in, but a lot of it is inflated cost.
Got it.
And it's largely a demand and availability thing because people don't have extruders at home. They don't have either the expertise or the know-how or the will to make tight tolerance filament. If you get tight tolerance filament from these people, which is basically what most of this stuff is, you're paying a premium.
Well, looking real quick right now, I'm seeing 18 pounds of black PET G for $45 on eBay.
So what you do is search for 25 kilograms or 55 pounds. Those are the standard size bags that you will get in the industry of pellets.
So I see. So 55 pounds. PLA pellets.
Oh, there you go. I see.
And resin is the typical term, not plastic. So PLA, neat resin, or whatever.
55-pound box.
Yeah, 50 pounds for $150 for $12 shipping. Oh yeah, and cheaper still. So yeah, I mean, if you really wanted to do it, you absolutely could for a lot cheaper. Just got to have a handy injection molder.
I am not
or an
seeing
injection molder.
$25 for a kilogram, and you're saying it's 1/30th the price?
I don't know. I'm seeing 50 pounds for $150. That's quite a few kilograms.
That's 25.
Sure, but it's only like $20 for a kilogram spool. So if it's 1/30th, it should be,
It's anywhere between a 30th and a 10th.
Yeah, and I am seeing larger amounts here for like significantly different amounts as well too.
So keep in mind, like.
Also, this is a quick search, so actually finding a good provider. I imagine you can find these things for you.
So you can get you could go to RTI and probably have. So RTI is RTI or RTD? I think it's RTI. They're intermediate. They do reformulations and such, and so they'll compound large supplier plastics, but they'd be like one of the people to go look at and see what kind of resins these people deal, by the way, on large quantity scales. So it's the reason why you're seeing this stuff on eBay is because somebody has a large quantity to sell of these polymers or these resins.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing it for basically as little as about $1 a pound.
Yeah, that's about right.
See, I could see that, but that's not 1/30th.
That's still a markup.
Yeah, this is on eBay too, so I mean, obviously there's going to be a markup. If somebody was dealing directly with a supplier, it would be a different matter. Like finding Spectra these days.
I'm finding like anywhere between $150 to $240 a pound, and if I was to make like, let's say it's a 25 kilogram bag, and 1 kilogram costs $20, that would be like, my assumption would be that I would be looking at like $500.
Oh, yeah, no.
It's
At
like
that,
half
at
the
that
price.
thing, you're paying almost the same price. That's not worth it. No, you'd
Right,
be
so
looking at
it's
some of these
like
other
a quarter of the price. It's maybe a quarter of the price. Not 1/25th the price.
So, context on this, and I'm fine with being wrong. The anywhere between 1/30th and 1/10th of the price thing comes from as much as 5 years ago.
Well, I mean, it would still be cheaper, so I got to figure out a way to actually get an extruder, like a real extruder that works.
Yeah, so screws are the expensive part because they have to be specially machined. But if you're just dealing with like an auger bit and a pipe, like you can. Here's the thing: the auger bit and pipe method is probably it's your cheapest way to do it, and it's not going to give you the worst results in the world, but it's not going to give you great results for consistency and diameter. So if you're printing something that doesn't need high precision, then you can use that filament pretty easily. Just to make sure that when you do the take-up on it, it's consistent and gives you a size that is going to feed into your printer okay. And get out your calipers or your micrometer and go down and get yourself a decent average for the length. Or chop it up into bits where you have an idea of kind of different diameters, several meters sections of different diameters. Just as a general rule, if you're going to do a print, you should also use your calipers to get an idea of the diameter of your material before you do the slicing anyway. It'll give you a certain number of meters. You have that many meters out of your spool, or you have an idea of what your spool's this is the idea behind the high precision stuff. You're not supposed to have to deal with that, but you do.
Yeah, that is actually a whole nother concern. Make sure you've got enough material for the thing you're about to print.
Yeah, there's that.
Like, that's, just thinking about it, I'm sure there's a lot of people that run into that just thinking.
I've gotten to, 30 hours in on a 37-hour print before and found out that I was out of TPU. And that was a shitty day. I wasn't just, my spool ran out, I was completely fucking out. Darn.
Oh, man, that's a son of a bitch.
Yeah. I forgot to order this shit last week.
Why would you use TPU?
Because it's thermoplastic polyurethane and it's a rubbery material.
Oh, you can print with that?
Yeah. So polyurethanes in general are rubbery elastomers, and usually they're cross-linked, like say your Gorilla Glue stuff. And that stuff is not thermoplastic, meaning you can't extrude it because it won't slide past itself. It's all cross-linked in a 3D matrix. But the TPUs are truly thermoplastically processable, and so that you can extrude them very easily. It's basically it's extrudable rubber, but it's rubbery. It's not like actual rubber. But you can make stuff you can make so I made a couple of these squeezable low poly Pikachus and other Pokemon for the nephews and nieces. To fuck around with. Yeah, so you can make little squeeze balls, and you can make wallets and stuff. You can make a functional 3D printed wallet.
Yeah, I'm thinking that'll actually be kind of useful for some of the things I'd like to try as well.
And you can also do multi-stage prints where you have certain parts that are printed in TPU and certain parts that are printed in other things. Or if you have a dual nozzle or a dual extruder setup, then you can use a PLA and TPU. They're pretty good at bonding.
Yeah, you can.
PLA, ABS and TPU is also pretty good. I don't know about PETG, but I imagine it would be fine.
So I have successfully printed my first part.
No, congratulations.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
I've heard a lot of criticism.
Well, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, and you look at the bottom, and it's kind of messy. The first layer is kind of messy. The rest of it actually, it does what it says it's going to do. But it's not perfect edges and whatnot. Now that could also be because like I said, where I don't have the blower fan working properly.
Well, you're one part closer to having it working the way you want it to.
that's exactly right. And I'm about to rotate the blower fan back into position, reset the hot end, and have a go at it again. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, luckily, the kit that I got came with the the fan redirectors already 3D printed. So
There is a very good chance the kit that I got also came with a fan redirector, and I either broke it and or lost it. That's a significantly higher likelihood, but I will blame China because who doesn't want to?
Oh, and you know what? While we're on the topic, and before we close out for the night, I'll share a useful tip that I've learned that I use, honestly, in a lot of my model making. Methyl ethyl ketones. They are good.
Methyl ethyl death.
Yes.
Or methyl ethyl kill you, as the EHS guy at VTech would say.
Yeah.
Holy shit. That stuff is super dangerous. It's in like everything if you want to deal with plastics, but it's super dangerous.
Yeah, keep it well sealed if you're using it. Keep it well ventilated. But, that said, most plastics, it's really, really good at bonding. You can hit the outside of a print with, like, if you've got something small and you want it to be just a lot more sturdy, a quick dunk in there is going to melt and refuse your entire outer shell. So if you're doing something that's going to be a wear part, that might be worthwhile. Now, of course, that's also going to kill any of your, precision parts. But, say you're trying to make a lower or something like that, or an upper, since that might be what they're looking at changing things into. This might be a worthwhile process for you.
All right, and I get to go write in my M303 code again. I'm very excited about this.
But there is one other thing you can do with that, too. If you feel so inclined as to make a completely enclosed area, you can put it on a temperature-controlled heating pad to get it to evaporate, and then you can actually get a really nice, really smooth effect on your prints. But that's a lot of work and kind of not worth it. So if you really do want to do that, go out and just do like a Google search for print smoothing, and they sell these things. You can just buy them.
So, out of curiosity, if I didn't want to reprint my blower, what is the likely impact of not printing with an actual blower?
You're going to have some real heat issues. So you'll probably be dealing with stringing.
Define heat issues.
It won't be adequately controlled and contained. Craig would have to tell you more because I just don't have the experience, but just from my mechanical understanding of it, that's the case.
Melty bits.
Yeah, pretty much. It's going to be a little bit more melty and stringy than you'd probably want it to be because the temperature isn't staying exactly where it needs to.
All right. Well, that's all right.
So I hope that's been helpful for you, and I hope that's helpful for anybody that's still listening at this late hour. And also, congrats on the first print, man. I hope to have mine in the next few days or maybe by the weekend. And for anybody that listened this long, I'll share you all an interesting thing. We've talked to a fair degree about the vaccines. I'm actually going to go out and get the vaccine that is a vaccine. I'm going to get the Janssen one from Johnson & Johnson. And I'll keep everybody up to date, let you know if I develop any new autisms or superpowers.
I will hold out as long as I can. I will honestly say that I am really, I'm safety concerns, all that there. I'm willing to take the risk of the disease versus untested products. But at the same time, I am going to fight the goddamn good fight that there is to fight against the application that will be transmitting my medical data to people I don't authorize to see.
These vaccine passports, they're an absolute fucking nightmare. I'm not really going to share any of that shit with anybody else. It's just the few people that want to listen all the way to the end of this, which, there'll be a shitload of people. But, if I go to a place and they're going to be specific about it, I'm honestly not going to frequent any business that requires vaccines. They're cut off from me. They're dead to me.
That's actually a good idea. That's a good idea, regardless of whether you get it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, listen, no, you stand for something I don't stand for, I'm not going to give you my business. I don't want to think
No,
that I'm
I
going to
think
co-sign your
that's
bullshit.
a fair point.
You know, whether you do or you don't. It's like you can't stand for this shit. You know, your rights are a muscle. You got to flex them, or they wither away.
Yep.
So I think that's actually a pretty wily end and an important thing for folks to remember too. So Craig's gone because he had to go and deal with some stuff. So look him up at CraigBob99. Look me up at that fake guy Dan pretty much everywhere, and you can look up Steve here at Ratman720, but you might not actually catch him.
That's correct.
So everybody, be good, be safe, keep your powder dry, keep your filament dry, and we'll talk to you again soon. Oh, I almost hit the wrong button. That would have been terrible. Later, people.